we are doing Christmas. We're done with Judges. Although by the amount of views that the Judges Bible study has gotten on YouTube, I'm thinking about changing these sermon series title, because like it doesn't get a lot of watch time. I think people like get into it and they're like, oh, okay. And so like that's it. And over there, but like the initial like hit, oh yeah, people want to know about Judges over here. So we are talking about Christmas. And so what I want to do first is I want you guys to tell me the parts of the Christmas story. What are the parts? Some of you have been around for a while, and you know that I like to subvert this thing. And so like, what are the part when you think of the Christmas story? What are the parts that you think about?
Zechariah.
What?
Zechariah.
Zechariah. Yeah, good job. You're so like, that's like, thanks for like that. I appreciate it. Does my heart good. As soon as someone mentions Zechariah, right? Like that. That's yeah. Sorry. So what? All right. So we have Zechariah. What's Zechariah's wife's name? Elizabeth. All right. And so you get Zechariah in the temple and Elizabeth. Okay. So what's another part of the story? The Annunciation, like when I described that, like Mary. Angel comes to Mary. All right, angel comes to Mary. That's good. All right, what's another part?
Comes to Joseph.
Angel comes to Joseph. We're going right through this, right? Like what's another part? Here, there are wrong answers, but there's no wrong answers now. Like that's we're just refreshing ourselves with like the nativity story that we understand.
John the Baptist's birth.
John the Baptist's birth, yeah, right. That kind of closing up that Zechariah story. All right, what's another one?
Mary goes to visit Elizabeth.
Mary visiting Elizabeth. You and Phyllis both got that. Like that. That's all right. So what's another aspect of the story?
You have to go on a nice journey.
You get to go on a nice journey. What are they? Yeah. What are they? I don't know if it's on a bus or not.
Took the train to.
That's funny. That's funny. So the
Nobody's going to mention that other animal.
yeah. So when everyone's dancing around is Mary riding the donkey. Everyone's dancing around that. Like that. That's funny. It's become like it's become a meme for me. So like that's great. All right. So how about after that? After that, what's going on?
I don't know whether I got a bad addition here. I would front and back and front. I couldn't find anything about that drummer boy.
Oh, the drummer boy. Yeah, there's nothing about a drummer boy in there.
Take a bite.
Even though he was there, right? Yeah.
You're the wise.
Yeah. So we got the wise men coming. Like that, we got the wise men coming, and then
And shepherds.
angels and shepherds. Angels and shepherds. The star. The guiding star. Now, who followed the star?
The wise men.
The wise men. So Mark did this Bible study on Sunday, and he had a bunch of people that thought the shepherds followed. They knew the wise men followed the star as well, but that also the shepherds followed the star.
The angel told them where Jesus was, though.
Yeah.
They didn't follow it, but that was.
Yeah. So like that's, and I was like, oh yeah, that's an interesting wrinkle because, so what are other aspects to the story?
No room at the end.
No room at the end? No room. Oh, Pam came back in. No room at the end. How about after, like wise men come after shepherds? What happens?
They decide they're not going back to Herod to screw things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The wise men not going back to to Herod, and there's a bunch of like weird stuff like massacre. Merry Christmas, everybody! Like we're talking about like killing babies here and stuff like that. And then you also have Simeon and Anna there at the end of Luke, and so like that's
Another trip.
another trip. Let's see. Oh yeah, they went to Egypt. They went the trip to Egypt. So that's and I think that's important to remember, and that's what we're talking. That's what we're talking about today. So because I love the Christmas story, I'm all about it. So my goal is to go through Matthew today, and then we'll do Luke next week. And
Here's your question, Matt.
to ruin things for you, our plan next year is that we are like we went through Mark 2 years ago. We have a late Easter again next year, next cycle, and we're going to do Matthew, which means we're going to do Matthew Christmas next year for Christmas. And we're going to do the gospel all the way through Easter and a little bit beyond if we need to. Yeah. So we're that's our plan. We like doing the gospels when there's lots of room between Christmas and Easter. So we are going to be going over this next year. So there are how many people in this room? 2, 3, and then you have Midget Ed and Lee. All were here when I originally did the Matthew Christmas story at there. Do you guys remember what that sermon series was called? Do you remember? It's not very creative.
Christmas.
Well, no. Like it's what was the main idea behind the Matthew Christmas story? Do you guys remember?
Seeing what we believed and wasn't in the Bible.
Okay. so all right. So that's like it's so the name of that's. I'm glad we're redoing this. I'm glad we're doing because this was like I think it was my second Christmas year. I think it was my second Christmas year. So it was 2017 is the last time we did this as part of a sermon series. It's called Exodus: A Christmas Story. Exodus: A Christmas Story. And so what Matthew does is, at least I think so, and I think it's pretty explicit. He connects Exodus to the rest of to the birth of Jesus. So what I want to do is we're not going to go through the genealogy. The genealogy is great, but I don't have the ambition to go through it right now. But what I would like to do is read starting with verse 17, which is the very end of the genealogy, chapter 1, verse 17 of Matthew. And we're going to go all the way through the Christmas story. So we're going to go through all the way through chapter 2. So verse 17 of chapter 1 all the way through chapter 2. So here we go. Let me make sure that I can. Yeah, I got this up. All right.
Okay.
So
Verse 17 was starting. Starting on verse 17.
all right.
No,
So
verse.
and let me know if the
Line that
if
says
the echo
17.
doesn't go away. All right, here we go.
So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David until the captivity in Babylon are 14 generations.
Yeah.
And from the captivity in Babylon until the Christ are 14 generations. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. After his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Spirit. Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not wanting to make her a public example, was minded to put her away secretly. But while he thought about these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream.
Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take to you Mary, your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And she will bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins.
So all this was done, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the Lord, through the prophet.
Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel.
Which is translated, God with us. Then Joseph, being aroused from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord commanded him, and took to him his wife, and did not know her till she had brought forth her firstborn son. And he called his name Jesus. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem.
Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him.
When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born.
In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel.
Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem.
Go and search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also.
When they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream.
Arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet.
Out of Egypt I called my son.
Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry. And he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet.
A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted, because they are no more.
Now when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt.
Arise, take the young child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel. For those who sought the young child's life are dead.
Then he arose, took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets.
He shall be called a Nazarene.
Dang, I didn't need it at the time. All right, here we go. Okay. That is the Christmas cheer. You know, like that gets us just all in good moods and all of that. So what stood out to you in this? What was different than how you thought it would be, or that you grew up understanding that it was? And what stood out to you?
One thing, the three wise men came to a house. They didn't come to a stable.
Yeah, they came to a house, and it seems like it's later. You know, like it seems like it's later. Let's see when they like it.
It was 2 years later because of the children, killing all the children on their table.
Yeah. So and we get that 2 years from when Herod got upset and like surmised it's like, oh, the star appeared about 2 years ago, and so so we're
Just in case he's still around.
Yeah. So that's somewhere within that 2 year time frame. Is Jesus, being born. So we have so it's kind of like that they go and visit a toddler, right? Like that's not even old enough to go to Coley's class on Sunday, because that's 3, by the way. 3 is when they can start coming. And
Were they really in a stable?
Well, it's the
Only because if you look at the style of the houses at that time, the lower level was where you kept your animals, and you lived on the second level. So it could have been that there just wasn't room upstairs.
Well, you look in Matthew; it doesn't even mention any of that. There's no manger. There's no shepherds. There's nothing like, so you look at the last verse of chapter 1, it says, and he did not know her. Like, it's the story of Joseph, right? Like he didn't know her till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, wise men from the east came from Jerusalem. They almost the entire nativity story is this yada yada over, right? It's like like that, in Matthew. Like that's what's wild. That's why I like beginning with Matthew too, because it makes you sit back and you're like, well, where's the shepherds? Where's the house? Where's where is all this stuff that I know? And it's like, oh, like this is doing something different to the story of Christmas. It's treating it in a different way. Now, I'm going to show you guys a great deal of kindness. All right. I think that I figured out a new sermon series that sounds kind of interesting to me. I came up with it at SeaWorld. And so you get it's very inspirational. It's no, but we were watching this like nativity story play out, and I was like, I think we'll call something. It's going to be like 2 years from now, but like something called like the Nativity. And there's all these things that are in the nativity story, like the Christmas play, that aren't in the scriptures, but I think there's reasons why they're in the nativity story. So like my favorite one, and we can go into this more in depth later, but like, we have Mary riding a donkey. I think that's allusions to the humbleness of Jesus going in to Jerusalem.
I thought that Sunday when you're talking about the donkey, him going riding the donkey into Jerusalem. Well, that's maybe why Mary was like.
Yeah. So I think like what are all these different things that aren't like, and like him saying drummer boy, I'm like, oh well, maybe because I'm sure there's always reasons why these things are in. And so like I think that'll be a fun series.
I try not to miss an opportunity to remind people I'm a dope. Where is the 2 years?
Oh, it was Herod. Let's see, what verse?
We killed babies 2 years and under.
Chapter 2, what? Like what where's the verse?
16.
16? Chapter 2, verse 16. Yeah.
Children.
So it says, then Herod when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all the districts from 2 years old and under, according to the time that he determined the wise men. Like, so that's that. And so that's the clue. That's the clue. So, and that's why I don't think you could say that Jesus is 2, but he's 2 or under, somewhere around there. Like that's, yeah.
Okay. This is kind of deep for me following him.
Yeah.
So the wise men were following the star.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They stopped and saw Herod.
Yeah. So let's look.
And then Herod found out about the star and said, "Go search diligently for the child." Wait a minute.
So let's outline the story real quick. So we have Joseph. That's part of the nativity story. You have the angel coming to Joseph. Now the angel does not come to Mary in Matthew. That's Luke. All right. Zechariah is Luke. All those things. So the angel comes to Joseph. Notice Mary is barely mentioned. Like it's over here. So Luke is very Jewish. And he is going about the story and talking about Jewish salvation. You got to understand that. And so and he's ringing a bell. Now, to us American ears, we don't really think this way. So we have to put ourselves into first century Jewish shoes or whatever, like that, into their bodies. And we have to ask ourselves a very important question. Before this, when was the last time God saved his people in a big way? Egypt. Passover, right? Passover. Like Matthew is ringing a bell. He's ringing bells like, hey, remember the last time God saved his people? It's happening again. And like you see, like out of Egypt, I've called my son. You see all these things. It's reminding us of the Passover and that the fulfillment of the Passover is happening again. This is Matthew's point, right? And so it's all going through the line of David, which is going through Joseph. That's why Joseph is mentioned. So let's now talk about the wise men that Kathy was talking about. So we see that Jesus is born. We see all the stuff that happens with Joseph. We can go back to Joseph if we want to, but Jesus is born in Bethlehem, right? And then it immediately talks about how Herod is the king. And where do the wise men go? Do they go straight to Jesus? No.
Don't know where he is.
They don't know where he is, but they're following the star, right? Like it's almost like they kind of stop following the star because they pick up the star again.
Right.
Like for some reason they stop following the star and they go to Herod. Why do they go to Herod?
They assumed he would be rejoicing.
Okay, they assume that's good. Why else?
The city hall.
They're going to see the boss.
They're going to go see the boss.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to say, Lee?
Yeah, that it would be customary to come and present yourself to the ruler first.
Yeah. So it'd be customary to present yourself to the ruler and all these things. Because again, they thought that he'd be rejoicing. Like there's all this stuff. That's not part of the nativity story. They're not going to Herod first, right?
And they may have thought Jesus was his son because they say born king of the Jews. They're talking to the king of the Jews.
Yeah. So they go to Herod. So, and as Mick said, Herod's the boss. Now let's start making Exodus connections here. In the story of the Exodus, who's the boss? Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh is the boss, and it doesn't get any higher than Pharaoh, right? Like that's and then let's go back into the Joseph story a little bit there. So Pharaoh's the boss. So Joseph's of a good line, right? He's of the line of David. Matthew goes into so much detail that we didn't even read it to connect Joseph to to David and that line, and I think is Rahab in that line and all that stuff. Like there's a bunch of important Jewish things that are in Joseph's line. All right, like there's a bunch of important things, and Matthew even he does the 14 generation things, like 14 before this. Let's see, Abraham to David are 14 generations. 14 generations until the captivity, Babylonian captivity, and 14 sets. So like Matthew's going like, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like this is like you could see salvation is happening again. And so he's over there. So in the Exodus story, who has prestigious credentials, we could say, but yet is nobody? Who is it? No? What'd you say? That's Joseph in the Christmas story. Who is it in Exodus?
Moses?
It's Moses. It's Moses, because think about it. Like, so Moses is in the basket. By the way, I was watching a theologian the other day, and this will get swept into some sermon sometime, probably next year. And so he said that it's the same language that when Moses is in the basket going down the river, and Pharaoh's daughter hears him crying out, that whole thing rhymes and sounds like when God hears the people crying out in distress and slavery. And so there's a strong connection between Pharaoh's daughter hearing and the language that God uses for his own people crying, which is very interesting, I thought. There's also a lot of ark imagery from Noah's flood with how the basket's described.
Well, Moses' rescue parallels Jesus' rescue.
So Moses, remember, Moses was grew up in kind of prestigious and then all of a sudden he had to be banished away because killed somebody, and like his own people don't like him, right? Like the Egyptians don't like him, and he goes off to Midian? Is that what he is? Yeah. And he ends up marrying Miriam out there, and all that. And what is Moses called? What happens? What is Moses called?
There's a shepherd out there.
He was a shepherd. What was he doing when God called Moses?
He was
tending the flocks.
Going after it.
Tending the flocks. And then what's the big thing? What's the big thing? Burning bush. There we go. Burning bush. All right. Like all that happens. And so think about what you know about this Joseph story, and think about what you know about Moses' story around that burning bush. How are they similar?
The star, the month.
The light. What happens to Joseph? He's sitting all of a sudden, he's kind of an outcast because his wife to be suddenly pregnant. That's not good. Like that. That's like that. That's, it's like, well, how'd this happen? Notice what Matthew does with Joseph. He goes out of the way to describe that he's a good dude.
He had to be powerful to protect her. He couldn't be just some Joe down on the corner.
Well, I think
he would have been stunned. I mean,
yeah, so he's. It's the typical thing. She would have been stoned. I don't think the powerful thing is that he does try to protect her. He's just going to do it really quietly. He's going to do everything quietly to keep her from getting stoned. That's correct. And so that's that stone thing. And so he's like a humble dude who's all of a sudden been humbled, right? This sounds just like Moses. And then all of a sudden an angel appears to him, right? Angel appears to him in this room like a burning bush and goes, hey, this is what we want you to do. And what is Joseph's reaction to that?
Okay.
Is it okay right away? Or is there some trepidation? Let's see here. Joseph's, this is verse 20, near the end of it. Joseph said of David, do not be afraid to take you Mary to your wife, For that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit, and she will bring forth a son, and she'll call his name Jesus, for he'll save people from his sins. So all this is done that the Lord fulfilled what was spoken by the Lord. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and all that stuff. God is with it. Then Jesus being aroused from sleep. Okay, so he did just go forward. It's also Mary then. All right, that's a Luke thing. All right, I get these things mixed up too.
It's funny to me that
Quiet.
They divorced her quietly. Yeah. So he had trepidation. So then Moses goes forward with Aaron and all of those things, and they go into he goes into Egypt. So then you have when Moses first goes into Egypt. He goes up to the Pharaoh, and there's this big to-do with Pharaoh. Do you guys remember what the big to-do is? Of that time? Pharaoh brings out some henchmen with him.
Guys who could turn their staffs.
Yeah. Yeah. They were what, magi?
Magician.
Yeah, magicians. But it's a similar type of person. It's a similar type of person, like a seer. You know, we may say today, like a seer, that's, we may even use like the term psychic or something like that. And so, and we remember that in that story, like all the magicians, they were able to throw their staffs down and they became snakes, right? And then Moses threw his staff down and it became a snake, and then it gobbled up all the other snakes, right? Like it got that happened, and Moses is like, let my people go. I think the fact that it's magi, these wise men over there, I think we're meant to see some parallels with these guys that are at the beginning of the Exodus story. We're meant to see some parallels with these guys, and that they're coming in, and they, right at the beginning when we first meet them, they go into the courts of the guys who's in charge. But what's interesting is that these guys leave, right? They're like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, right? Like that's like over there. That's what we end up seeing, is that, they see the true one there. So, all right. So they walk in, we're getting back into our timeline now. So they walk in there and they talk to Herod, and verse 3 is very interesting. And Herod, the king, heard this and was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. That phrase, all Jerusalem with him, is a subtle indication that these guys probably weren't just three dudes on the back of camels. That this was probably some big entourage of some kind. That's like, there's a couple places like that we have in pop culture that we could see this, like in the movie Aladdin, when Prince Ali comes into the town, like that. Is that, or does that only work on millennials? That example, like that. Right.
People ought to appreciate this, but I owe a debt of gratitude to Cecil B. DeMille and Charlton Heston.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Right. Moses.
Going back to what you said a long time ago about why Matthew didn't cover all the details like Luke did.
Yeah.
My conception from Bible studies many moons ago, 193 years ago, I think, was that maybe these guys who traveled together all this time commiserated and said, hey, Luke already covered this stuff. All I got to do is tell what isn't there.
Yeah.
That was just my feeling.
It could be. I have a new theory on Luke, And we'll talk about that one next week. Okay. And like that's, and it's like that's you. And the funny thing is this group pretty much knows it already.
Look,
And you probably haven't realized it. And so, because all I'll say is I realized all of that over the summer. And so, so we have the wise men come. They come into Jerusalem, and everyone in Jerusalem is troubled with them. So we think it's a big group because of that. And then so they gather everyone together and like, where is this supposed to be? Like they don't even go to the right town. Like they go to the king. They go to the guy in charge, which like you think about, just if you let yourself back up and remember the Exodus story, like they all go to Pharaoh, right? It all goes through Pharaoh. Like that's the whole point of Joseph, and like in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, that Joseph. And so,
well, and I've never really thought about it before, but they didn't go back to Nazareth. If I thought, well, Mary would just had a baby and they couldn't travel, so they stayed there. But if they stayed there a year, did they not go back because Mary was shamed?
Yeah.
Because if they wouldn't have been in Bethlehem,
it's weird that they stay there that long, isn't it?
Yeah. And then they don't go back.
Movement is very different in the past than it is today.
Yeah.
And also, there's no rush. Notice there's no rush. That's one part of the nativity story that I think we inherently put in, that there's a rush, that she's like about to pop with the baby as she's walking in. There's no rush in Luke either. Like that. That's, and so like that. That's they were there. Like movement. After Christmas Day service, we're going to get in my car and we're going to drive to Atlanta, and I'm going to be doing the speed limit the whole time, right? Yeah, of course. Like that's why? Yeah. Like that's
in certain areas.
Yeah, in certain. When the traffic is heavy and I can't go any faster, like that's. But when we travel, we usually are in a rush. We're trying to do. Like that sense just isn't there. We'll see that next week too, but I want to notice that here as well. So what they do is they look at all the prophecy, and they've got all these records. So verse 5 is so they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, which is it's Isaiah here, right? But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Now, Blythe talked about this last night too, but what's important about Bethlehem?
City of David.
It's the city of David. So remember that Matthew is extremely Jewish, and he's not looking at this through American-centric eyes. He's looking at this through Jewish eyes. And so he's connecting this Isaiah thing to this idea of Bethlehem. So the wise men go to the guy in charge, and they go to the most important city as well. Like think about how both of these are happening, and then you're seeing the gospel playing out here. They're like, no, it's not the most important person. It's Joseph, right? It's Joseph. He's in this line of David. But he's no one. It doesn't say anything more than him being, just him, right? And so then you have Joseph, and then now you have, it's not even that, it's Bethlehem too, which is this, like you read the prophecy and it's supposed to be kind of insignificant. So as we continue going through the story, then Herod, he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them the time the star had appeared, and sent them to Bethlehem and said, go search carefully for the young child, and when they have found him, bring him back to me, that I may come and worship him as well. So is that a real request of him? What do we know about Herod from history?
Yeah, he'll knock people off at a drop of a hat.
Yeah. He's not a good dude. Yeah. Like he's not a good dude at all. Like that. He's a dude in charge, but remember, he's afraid of his own son taking the throne after him.
Right.
that he's killing his own cousins and families and uncles, and like that's anyone that has a claim to the throne. Like he's over here, so he's so you could just see the snake appearing, right? Like that. Oh, let me tell me where it is so I can worship him as well. If he really wanted to do that, he would have gone with them.
Yeah, why didn't the chief priest go with him if they thought it was a fulfillment of the prophecy?
I think it's.
No.
I think when you read the prophets in the Old Testament, that they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me.
Mhm.
I think it's playing off those ideas, those tropes.
And is Matthew setting up for Jesus' ministry and his?
Thinking theologically there. That the chief priests and everyone important is going to be against him. Yeah.
Not what they.
Yeah, not what they expect. And so they, let's see here. Then verse 9, when they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. Like this star, so we're going to the planetarium on Sunday. And that's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But this kind of seems like a cosmically powered star, it's like almost, it doesn't say this, but almost like what we would consider to be like an angel in the sky type of thing. Like they are following something and they're like, there it is, like that's, and I think the nativity stories do this really well, where they have like the light of the star, almost like a UFO tractor beam, right? Like right down to on top of it. Yeah. Like a what? Like a pillar of fire. Yeah.
Star of the Spirit.
Well, that's and I think you could do a similar. Like he said, are they following a star or a spirit?
The Spirit.
The Spirit. I think you could. I think there's a lot of overlap. This is obviously something that God has ordained. Like that's and that is what they did. So they when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly in great joy, and they went to the house and Mary, they fell down and worshipped him and gave him the three gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That's where we get the three kings. And what I love about this story is that it's the sense in the Old Testament that when God comes, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess. That is a very Jewish idea of when the Messiah comes. That it's now, so we still have this today, and sometimes some our modern day prophets will use that like in a very like damning sense, like you're gonna like all that, but this doesn't present it. These are people from afar, not Jewish, that are coming, and they are willingly, with great gladness, bowing down and worshiping. And that's such a beautiful image. It's not antagonistic. It's not, but it's just of the world, those on the outside, willingly and with love in their heart doing that. And I think that's a cool part of the story that gets overlooked. And so they give them all the stuff, and then they are warned in a dream. So Joseph has the dream. They now have a dream that Herod is a nasty snake in the grass, and they go back a different way. And then the angel appears again to Joseph, right? And says, take the young child and his mother. And in case you don't get it, and you're dense, and you get, I wasn't looking at you. I was looking at the FedEx truck, and that's and all that stuff. Matthew rings. It's not a bell like we at the seminary in St. Louis. They had a carillons, like over there, and a massive bells. Like he's ringing like the biggest bell you can when the angel goes, flee to Egypt. So we have Joseph going to Egypt to save God's people. Like that's the end of Genesis. That's the Exodus story, and that's the Christmas story. Like he's ringing a bell. He's like, remember the last time God saved his people? It's happening. You know, the way we position the Passover in our faith, it's definitely peripheral. Like it's because we have the Passover lamb in Jesus now. You know, like that's if you went to a random Christian somewhere and go, how important is the Passover? You know, it would all be historical importance, right? That's not how it is to the Jewish people. That's not how it is to who this was written to, right? And written for. And it's like, flee to Egypt and stay there till I bring you word. And then it sounds like the Exodus, that the guy in charge kills everyone, just like Moses and just like on Passover itself, where the firstborns all die. And so you have all these things, and then to further exasperate it even more, with at the end on verse 15, and was there until the death of Herod, that it may be fulfilled which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, out of Egypt I have called my son. And that you have, and if you allow yourself to let the Old Testament story of salvation and all the prophets and how what everything is to the Jewish people wash over you, like when you're sitting down in the breakers of the ocean and that giant wave just hits you, you know, and you're over there and you just let it hit you like that. You see that all the promises of God to his people are being spoken of right here. Out of Egypt, I've called my son. Salvation, right? Like it's all those things, and that is happening then, and so you even have like a replaying of the scary stuff of Egypt in what Herod did. And it talks about Jeremiah, the voice heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping and mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. Like that's you know, it's all like it's just wave after wave of reminding of Passover. You know, it's reminding him of that story, and then once Herod dies, this is verse 19. Once Herod dies, behold, an angel of the Lord appears to him, Joseph, to a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Even that name we've seen before in that same situation, you know, and through dreams. Like this is like there's so many bells ringing here, right? Like that's arise, take the young child and his mother and go to the land of Israel. For those that wanted to kill the child are dead, and then and go to the land of Israel. So then it talks about someone else going there, and then it says they move into Nazareth, right? And it says that, you know, he shall be a Nazarene, but he moves into Nazareth, which I don't know if this is correct or not, but I think it is. In Nazareth in Hebrew basically means the sticks. You know, it kind of comes from nowhere, you know. Or my favorite town to make fun of around here, Yeehaw
Junction.
Like that's Yeehaw Junction. That they came back. They went and escaped to Maine for a while, and came back to Florida, to the land of Florida, and they lived in Yeehaw Junction, right? Like so that's. Because that's kind of the sense that Nazareth.
It's just a real place that you guys are.
Yeehaw Junction? Yeah. Oh, you don't realize Yeehaw Junction? No, it's a real place, mate.
Yeah.
You know, like so.
Stop on the turnpike past Fort Pierce.
Yeah, the next stop.
It's called Yeehaw Junction.
Yeehaw Junction.
Originally known as. Jackass Crossing.
Crossing. I've crossed that plenty of times.
So here. Oh. Yeehaw Junction.
He said I wasted my time in Bible study.
So here's Fort Pierce on the Turnpike. It's up here at 60.
It's just like this map right here.
Yeah. So Yeehaw Junction. Like, so that's so like that's and then we were introduced to John the Baptist, and John the Baptist prepares the way, which sounds like Elijah and all that stuff. And then Jesus is baptized. Now, Jesus connection, baptism, we connect it to an Old Testament story. Which one is that? Do you remember? The Red Sea. Like going through the Red Sea. We connect that to the waters of baptism, that it's like the people of Israel are baptized and they go out. And then if you miss it even more, where does Jesus go in every gospel after he's baptized? The wilderness. The wilderness. And where does Israel go? The wilderness. Like when we say that Jesus is the new Israelite, that's one of the reasons why we are saying that. He is the fulfillment of all the Israelites and all those things. So what Matthew is doing in his gospel, he's ringing a bell saying the last time God saved his people, like, do you see it? Do you see it? And so we do the same thing now when we are talking about like the Matthew and the Christmas story. So it may be a little different. And if you gather your grandkids around you on Christmas time, and all that stuff, like, gather around, kids, we're going to talk about the Passover, and doesn't this get you in the Christmas spirit? Like that, you can do that now. It may not go over well with your kids, but I'll
bring a carp.
Yeah. Bring a carp. But that's what I think is what Matthew is trying to get across with this Christmas story. So we have a few minutes left. Does anyone have any thoughts, any concerns, what's going on?
When you were talking about out of Egypt, I called my son.
Yeah.
The study Bible says, Hosea.
Or you can talk.
The Lord refers to Israel as my son.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Jesus stands in a lot. Like that's the whole, like in Isaiah, when he's like, by his wounds we are healed, and all these stuff like that. That stuff we place directly on Jesus, but Israel understood that for themselves during that time. And so that's like Jesus is standing in all these prophecies for Israel, for God's people, and which is cool.
But he is Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a stand-in, he is.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, he is Israel. He is Israel. Yes. Like that's, yeah. Like, are there any other questions, or just interesting things that you noticed?
It's all interesting. In the study Bible here, it says that the Messiah would be despised, and then for Jesus' day, Nazarene was virtually a synonym for despised. I think.
Oh, really? Really?
How about him?
Huh. But that would be consistent with your idea that it was the sticks. These are people way out of nowhere. So
yeah.
Is this Nazarene different than the Samson Nazarene?
Well, that's what as soon as he said that, I was thinking about that with the Samson connection, because it would be, and also, like, if you allow the Israel connection to Samson to happen as well, because that was a big thing that when we went through Samson a few weeks ago, I guess over a month ago now, that I was like, oh, like Samson is just Israel, like that he's playing the harlot with all of these, with the Philistines and all of this stuff, and he is taken into captivity and seemingly blinded and stuff like that. And then you kind of get this apocalyptic like ending with Samson type of thing. So that would, that would jive with kind of like the Jesus image too.
And didn't who was it, one of the disciples, when his friend told him, come on, see Jesus of Nazareth. Didn't he say, what good can come out?
Oh yeah, what good? They go out of their way. They go out of their way. Well, and we're doing, like that's a consistent theme. Like we saw it when we were going through Mark, we see it also as we go into Matthew this next year. It's Jesus is going to the outcasts, the nobodies, all of that.
And even though I knew this occurred, that Herod ordered the death of the male children, it just put into perspective for me. It's like the birth of Jesus has a double jeopardy here. He's to be the king of the Israelites, and also he's the reason all those children got killed.
Yeah.
So it's like, lose.
Well, there's so I would connect that to, and this is going to sound rough, so just put your seatbelt on. So the Hebrew language is balanced. So I can't remember, I was telling someone this recently, I was telling you this. And so this is the biggest thing that I got when I started studying Hebrew, is that the Hebrew language is inherently balanced. And what I mean by that is that every word, now there's some exceptions, but every word in the Hebrew language can go down to a verb, okay? Nouns, all that stuff, they all decline down into verbs. And then every verb has three, every word, all the roots, all have three characters. Okay. Now there's exceptions, and all that stuff, like there is to anything. But by and large, the Hebrew language, so then you switch things over to nouns, you switch things over to different tenses and all that stuff by adding prefixes and endings and onto it, which we kind of understand that. And so you build the language, but you build it on both sides of the word as you're making it. The language is inherently balanced. And you can tell a lot about cultures and people by how their language functions. So like if you've ever met Russians or anyone from the Baltic states, they're kind of a rough people. The language is rough, right? Like they kind of just are a gruff, like all that stuff. Like German is that way. French is like the way it is, more sing-song. Like that's kind of how the people are, right? Like that's
Romance language.
Yeah, romance languages. Like that's all these things. Like they're inherently together. Like so, it's everything to a Hebrew person to be balanced, and I think that idea is connected to what you just said.
Birth and death.
Yeah, like that. It's I would try not to overly simplify it, but again, like you can kind of let it hit you like the water type of thing, And so
that death and rebirth.
Yeah. Like that's, and so like this idea of balance, that with that understanding, the Old Testament will make more sense too. Like that's because everything to the Hebrew people is balance, and all the, like that's, like that whole thing. And so it helped that little idea helps me a lot in kind of understanding all of that. But so I don't know exactly if that's what it is, but it kind of sounds like it a little bit to me. But yeah, so that's Matthew's Christmas story. Like we kind of take Joseph's story and the wise men and kind of leave out the rest because it's kind of a downer. There's nothing like being on Christmas Eve when I'm specifically focusing on Matthew and everyone's singing these great Christmas hymns. And we're talking about killing babies and then the readings and all of that stuff. There's nothing. I don't think people know quite what to do with those years. That's what next year will bring us, though. And so, like that's, but that is what is going on. Yeah. So, anything else? Cool deal. Yeah, like that's so. I think Matthew's incredible because he's ringing a bell, inviting us the last time God saved his people. And if you miss it, like Jesus becomes the Passover lamb in Matthew. You know, like that's, he never leaves that idea. Like Jesus becomes the Passover lamb. And so it's cool stuff. We just have more of an ear for the Passover lamb around Easter, like that, not around Christmas. And so, but yeah, so that's that. So, I have a couple of announcements. The Korean church has done a flip-flop on me. The Korean church is now joining us for 4 p.m. Christmas Eve service, not the 7th. So like that's so they will be identical. I don't think they're going to play, they're not playing any music with us. The Korean church used to play music pre-COVID. The reason why they don't anymore is Vero, Korean Air used to train all their pilots in Vero. And so they had all these young families that were pilots. So they're just incredibly well trained and just, you know, like operate at a higher level than me. And so like and so they would always have like a little orchestra at Christmas. But COVID
I thought the preacher's kids were part of that too.
Yeah, the preacher's kids were part of that too. So the music won't be any different, but Pastor Kim will be sharing a devotion that I always tell him is 5 minutes long. And it always ends up being longer, but it's usually pretty sweet. I will always remember the one year, I think it was Christmas of 2019, when he called his little, he said that Grace was Elizabeth to his little Mary church. and like such a sweet, yeah, I know, right? Like such a sweet thing to say on a Christmas Eve service. Everyone's crying and stuff like that, all that. And he speaks through an interpreter. He's taking English classes, but he speaks through an interpreter, which is usually one of his kids, which are hilarious.
So that is just the 4 o'clock.
That's just 4 o'clock. That's just 4 o'clock.
What service are you live streaming?
So it's that one will probably be the one that gets recorded. And so that one will be available at 7. It may be available before 7, but I'm guaranteeing it'll be available at 7. I can't live stream it because I know I'm going to break YouTube's copyright laws. And so I gotta record it, then upload it to Vimeo. And so like that's, and so I'll do that. So you'll have to go to the website to see it, but then you can watch it, or you can download the Vimeo app and find us like all that stuff. It won't be on YouTube because YouTube, we will get another copyright strike. And so I don't need one of those. We got one of those 2 years ago and they still remind me of it. It's like a badge of shame on the top of the YouTube application it's called Studio. Like it says, you have 1 out of 3 strikes. Still, I'm like, it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. It's like, come on, when does this drop? Yeah. And so that's Christmas Eve. We're doing a small communion service at 10:15. And no one has talked to me about whether or not they're coming to that or just that. So I'm operating that's going to be a small communion service, and then we're going to do the bigger 4.
No, 8:30.
No, 8:30.
And Christmas Day?
Christmas Day will be at 10:15 as well. And it'll be a communion service as well. And so Christmas Day, and then New Year's Eve, that's also a Sunday. That will have just 10:15 as well. So and Ed Scott is filling in on that Sunday. And so he's doing Simeon. So that's kind of changed the schedules. So we'll see.
You're gonna put it on the website?
Yeah, it'll be on the website. It actually isn't. The New Year's isn't on there yet, but it'll be on there. So that's New Year's Day. It just makes it easier to do one service with Ed. And so everyone, that week in between Christmas and New Year's is always bizarre. Yeah. It's just a bizarre week. Like, nothing's normal. So, so that's, we're done there. So for everyone watching on
Voters meeting.
YouTube, thank you so much.